Hi, welcome to Nourishing Body and Soul, the podcast. Get ready to revitalize your mind, body, and soul. We're here to inspire women who are looking to break free from old patterns and ideas to create a life of increased confidence and improved health. Say goodbye to limiting beliefs and hello to new possibilities. So kick back, get ready to have some fun, and let's dive in. We'll uncover tools and insights that can help you build a life that's truly nourishing, body and soul. Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Victoria.
And we're glad that you're here with us. So today, I don't have an I know better than, but just because I have such a fun story from this morning.
He knows all.
Well,
That's why.
I wasn't going to say that, but since you did. Oh, heaven help us all. But this morning, I just want to tell you about, I haven't told you about this.
Oh, okay.
We had an activity this morning that was a community-wide service project, and they had all these various projects going on. And so I went and did that this morning. I've been meaning to, we have this wonderful organization in an area called Say Love that does a community service project every month. And I keep...
They do?
Yeah. I know. See, thank you.
Embarrassing. That is really embarrassing.
But I keep meaning to do it. I keep thinking, but wait, which Saturday is it? And I hear about it afterward and got my act together today. This one was not just Say Love, but Say Love in several organizations. And so I spent the morning with a friend of mine wrapping gifts at Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, wow.
Habitat for Humanity has some, the Amazon mystery boxes.
Uh-huh.
When people return things to Amazon, Amazon doesn't always restock them. They just throw them all in a box and you can buy them for super cheap.
Oh, wow.
So Habitat for Humanity has several of those, and what they're doing is they're wrapping them up, and you can, for any locals, this is a killer thing. You can buy a box for $25. It's guaranteed to have at least $100 worth of items in it, but you just have no idea what might be in it because it's Amazon return, so it could be anything.
So what kind of things are in it?
Oh, what were some of the things that were in it?
So people have an idea.
Yeah, so some of the things, I wasn't doing the sorting. I was just wrapping boxes already done, but I was by the girls who were doing the sorting, and it was so funny listening to them because it sounded like Christmas morning over there.
Oh.
They'd be like, oh, I love this. So one, things as random as the clips that hold the tablecloth on the table on outdoor, or the little feet that you can put on a table or whatever that have felt on the bottom, so your table doesn't scrape the ground. But then what else? Well, at our Habitat here, every 20th box has a Nintendo Switch in it. So yeah, it is just
bury the lead, man.
All manner of things.
Wow.
So anyway, I spent the morning wrapping these boxes for Habitat for Humanity, and then before the event, the beginning of the event was a breakfast by the Early Morning Kiwanis Club, and then after the service projects was a lunch by the Marysville Kiwanis Club. And so it was just really fun to be with the community and doing something like that, and just a great time this morning. So I just wanted to share that.
That's super fun.
Yeah, it was.
All right. Well, I feel very paltry because I was going to do an I know better than.
No, do it anyway. You're doing what I think you're doing is funny.
I was going to do an I know better than, but
please do.
Okay. Well, congratulations on your service. I'm going to celebrate you because we talked about that.
Okay.
Celebrate you and all those in your community while I slept in my bed.
I knew better than to invite you because we had to be there at 7:30.
I stay up all night writing, and so
mornings are not her thing.
No, but now I'm feeling kind of guilty.
Because they never have service projects later in the day.
You're right.
You can't serve later in the day. You can only serve early in the day.
I'm feeling unworthy at this moment. I'm feeling very unworthy.
Oh, that's funny.
Understand. So anyway, I know better than. I've talked a lot about how much I say I'm sorry and how I say it all the time and it's annoying to people, and then they tell me to stop, and then I tell them I'm sorry that you are feeling bad that I'm saying I'm sorry. It's a thing. It's annoying for many people. So I try really hard not to, but it doesn't always work. I was looking at my phone. I needed to look up something. She's like, look something up really quick. And so I went to look something up, and there was I don't know what was on my phone, some strange random things. And I said, sorry, to my phone, because I had to like go away from the strange random things. Like that is like, that's next level, like wackiness going on there. So I know better than to say I'm sorry, but I guess I'm sorry to everyone. Even
you know you have a problem with.
yeah. I don't know if I've said I'm sorry to Alexa, but
well, she has a voice and she has feelings. So
yeah, she thinks she has feelings. She says
she
things.
brings up feelings for us.
Yeah, she does feelings. Anyway, that which kind of leads into
yes. This is a much more serious topic today. I say as I giggle.
well,
But it's just something that we have just really been seeing more of and understanding more deeply lately. Let me introduce this with a story. It was, I don't remember how long ago it was, more than a year ago, probably a couple of, it was more than 2 years ago. I was just feeling kind of stuck with what I was doing business wise. And so I had a few sessions with a life coach. And in these sessions, she kept saying to me at various points, you're worthy of this. And I go on and I think to her, I know that. Why are you saying this to me? Mm-hmm. Oh, and then we'd go on talking about something and she'd say, and you're worthy of this. And I'm like, this must just be something they teach you at life coach school. Why are you saying this to me? Because in so many areas of my life, it's like, yes, I know I'm worthy of that. But I bet you can't guess that as I thought about it, I realized what she was saying was true. In those particular areas that I was struggling in, the bottom line of it was worthiness. And so that really, if somebody would have asked me ahead of time, how is your self-worth? I have very solid self-worth. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I have very solid self-worth. I would not have thought that was a problem. But then when I was talking to her about a specific issue, and she kept saying that,
yeah,
and I realized she was right.
Yeah.
I really then started looking at what other things, like how often have I gotten stuck and just thought, why am I stuck in this area? Now since then, I have looked at, is this a worthiness thing? And every time it has been. Every time.
Yeah.
So we got to talking about this recently.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about it because I struggle all the time. And I think I've talked a little bit before about being bulimic, and when I started when I was a young girl, and it was all like, all my worthiness was tied up in my body. Like all my worthiness was about how I looked. And I still struggle with that. I still struggle with, like, I talked about watching The Golden Bachelor, which is super embarrassing, but whatever. I was watching these because he's like 70
Mm-hmm.
and the women are like in their 60s, which I thought they would give him like 20-year-olds or whatever. So I watched it because I was like, okay, I want to see old people date and see what that looks like. And all these women came and they were like, because I have insecurities like everybody does, but like they came and I was like, all my things that I was insecure about looked great on these 60-something-year-old women. And I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds stupid now. Like, I joke about it and it was funny and I made jokes about it to everybody. But underlying, I thought, am I even worthy to be dating? Like, am I worthy to find someone? And not worthy in a moral sense, but worthy, like,
do I think I'm worth that?
Yes. Do I think I'm worth that? Do I think that anybody will look past what I think are problems in my areas of, what I guess would call shame?
Yeah. Well, and when we look at it, it's like we've got this scale here, and it's like we look at and we think that here are all the things that we think are problems and flaws and things that are hard for other people to deal with or whatever. And we think that that's really outweighs what we have to offer.
Yeah.
And that's a worthiness thing. And then when we can, the closer we can get to, or even, no, what I have to offer is more than the mess that has to be dealt with. Then it's that scale that we make up. And we tend to think that the things that are, well, sometimes it goes the other way. You think that well, it's no big deal. That shouldn't bother you, but
mostly not. No, really,
mostly
even that,
Yeah.
those kind of comments where like, oh, I'm whoever. I'm like, I'm the most gorgeous woman in the room or whatever. I'm just making that up. Like somebody says that, not me. Even that, like the arrogance and whatever, I think is a mask for the insecurities. Like I have to declare this is how I'm worthy, maybe more worthy than all of you, those people, the narcissists or narcissistic adjacent or something, those people.
Oh yeah, well, we can base our self-worth in so many different things, like in looks or in intelligence, and so or in a particular skill set or whatever. We can base our self-worth in so many things, and when we do that, then we really need to look at it's like, wait a minute, is the fact that I'm the best basketball player on the planet, is that what makes me a worthy person? Because these things can go away. Yeah. And then what happens?
This reminds me of a quote.
Okay.
It was a quote. It's Stephen Fry, who was an English actor, and he was paraphrasing basically. He was paraphrasing Oscar Wilde, who gave a lot of hilarious, wonderful quotes. But this, it like hit me because these are I knew we were doing this, and I knew we were going to be talking about it. And he said, paraphrasing the great Oscar Wilde, "We are not nouns, we are verbs. I am not a thing, not an actor or a writer. I am a person who does things. I write, I act, and I never know who I'm going to be next." Which I thought was interesting, that we are verbs, we aren't nouns. And I don't know how many times you go to a party or wherever and people say, "Oh, what do you do?"
That's a big thing.
Where did you go to school? Yeah, where did you go to school? As if that defined who you are, defined what your intelligence was, what your income was, what all the things that, and it always used to bother me, not because maybe because I was not a, MIT, engineer
Surrounded by MIT engineers.
I was just surrounded by MIT engineers, which was awesome for my self-worth. It's no wonder like I based some of my self-worth in my looks, because it wasn't it was not going to be my
that environment.
Yeah. Well, actually, I felt like it could be my brains, but could be my brains, but they didn't, like when you ask somebody, it wasn't going to be, like you ask, I wasn't going to an Ivy League school. Yeah. I just worked with a whole bunch of people who went to Ivy League schools.
Yeah. And here's another quote too that just came across my social media recently.
Sorry, I talked in a podcast where people are supposed to be talking.
Yeah.
Carry on.
It related to the Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
Not as well put, but it says your purpose is not the thing you do. It's the thing that happens to others when you do it.
Ooh,
I love that one. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Why did you diminish that? Why did you say it's not as good as Oscar Wilde?
No, the wording of it, that Oscar Wilde has definitely a way with words. Yeah. The impact of it, yes. But the phrasing of it is very clear and plain. And
the whole point is you are not,
a noun.
Yeah, you are not a noun.
Yeah. So a couple of Jamie Kern Lima has a book coming out in February called Worthy, that I'm really excited for. So you can pre-order that if you want to, but you have to look up Worthy Book. You can go to worthybook.com. Yeah, worthybook.com. Because apparently Jada Pinkett Smith has a book called Worthy as well that's out now. So if you just go to Amazon and type in Worthy, hers will probably come up. So you can either put Jamie's name in after it. And I've just been getting little tidbits of what's coming up with that. And her book, Believe It, I love that book. And so I'm looking very forward to this. But somebody who has spoken more about it already in a way that's easily accessible because it's things that are published is Brene Brown.
Yeah, Brene Brown. And she talks about worthiness, but she immediately ties it to shame. And she's a researcher that has, probably a lot of you have heard of her, but if you haven't, she's a researcher that began researching. I don't know what she started to research, but she discovered shame was attached to all kinds of things and just became like a researcher on shame and gave a very famous TED Talk, probably one of the more famous TED Talks that's ever been given. And then she was on Oprah on her Sunday Soul Sunday. Anyway, if you look up the TED Talk and then look up Brene Brown and Oprah, you'll find some really like enlightening. It's intense, but it's really enlightening way of looking at things and your body and what you do and all of that. So anyway.
So obviously this is a very big topic, so we're just very skimming the surface here. But if this is something that speaks to you, there are all kinds of resources that are available. Brene Brown is a good place to start. Jamie Kern-Lima, when that book comes out, I'm sure will be very accessible and very helpful.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But let's just spend a few minutes to talking about what areas and how does it show up, this worthiness issue show up in various areas. Relationships. We were just talking about gift giving. Holidays are coming up, and
can I tell the story?
Yeah,
because I've told stories about my mom before. So my mom, she's always giving to others. Like if there's something on a platter, then that, and then whatever is what she deems the least of it is what she takes. And so I've given her gifts because, you know, I've given her gifts, obviously. And I've given her gifts like things that I love, which should be a sign that I shouldn't, but I gave her like some really beautiful bath soap, like soap and I worked at Nordstrom, and so I bought it from Nordstrom. So she was like, this is from Nordstrom, and she put it in her shower. And like 2 years later, I look and it's still there, just barely. And I'm like, Mom, why are you not using this? And she's like, oh, it's nice. You're worthy of that. You're worthy of nice. But anyway, that's extreme, kind of. But
also, that, I mean, think about it. How often have you given somebody a gift and they kind of don't know what to do with that, or you feel awkward giving it even? Or how many times have you received a gift where it's like, oh gosh, no,
it's too much.
I didn't get anything for you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. And so this whole that's a I think a pretty a good indicator.
I think it's a good. How many times have we said like, that's too much? Oh, you know, and the person giving it obviously thinks you're worthy of it, or they wouldn't be giving it to you.
Let me tell you this really wonderful experience I just had about the beautiful blanket that is now currently on my bed.
Okay.
This is one where it was a very beautiful and healthy exchange. It's what?
I'm sorry, I don't know. It's a very beautiful and healthy exchange, as opposed to all the other non-beautiful and unhealthy exchanges I have
had. With the whole gift giving thing, this whole where it can feel lopsided one way or the other. There's discomfort around that. One of my wonderful daughters-in-law just has had a really, really rough year, and so one thing she did, and which I obviously had no idea about, she was crocheting this or knitting this blanket, and it's beautiful. And when we were there recently visiting, she gave me this blanket for my birthday and for Christmas. It took hundreds of hours to make.
Wow. It is beautiful.
So, but when she gave it
and
to
big
me,
too, it's not like a little throw blanket.
No, it covers my queen size bed.
But I just saw it. That's why I know.
When she gave this to me, it was this really beautiful moment, because it was something that's like, I've done this little itty bitty bit of knitting. I have crocheted more than that, but not a lot more. But I know how long that takes. And so when I saw the size, but I knew it had taken a long time. And so immediately I went, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And then she went on to tell me how this, we have a very close relationship, and how she, in all these months that we've been apart, while she's been going through all these hard things, she would knit this blanket, and she knew she was knitting it for me. And so she said, it was like I had you with me. And the bigger it got, it was like this blanket would just surround me, and I would have, it was like she gives great hugs, and that's one of our things. It's like we love to hug each other. And she said, it's like I could just have a hug.
It's gonna make
from
me
you.
cry.
Oh, I was in tears. You better believe.
Oh my gosh.
But it was this really beautiful moment where it was a major gift. It took a long time to make, and it comforted her in the meantime. But then when she gave it to me, it would have been so easy to go, oh my gosh, no, it's like,
Yeah.
that would have been something that would have been very easy to go, this is too much.
Yeah.
But because of the relationship that we have with each other, I knew that it meant a lot to her, but I knew that I felt perfectly worthy of that in that moment. It's like, there was not even an inkling of, oh, I can't take this from you. It's meant so. There's not even an iota of that. It was just.
Well, when you hear the story,
yeah, it was just a really beautiful story of it meant even more to me than I mean to her than I even knew when I opened it and saw how big it was and knew how it must have taken so long to make this. And she told me I've been working on this all year. I've been working on it since last January.
Wow.
And so, but it was just and when we're in that place, when she was in that place, there was not any kind of this just isn't enough for what you've done, or there was no diminishing on her part, and there's no diminishing on my part. It was just this really beautiful exchange, and that's I don't tell that story to say, oh, see, this is what happened, because I've had so many experiences where I don't know what to do with myself when somebody gives me a gift, and I don't know what to do when I'm giving somebody a gift. But in this moment, that's what it can look like. That's what it can feel like. And not that every gift is going to be this big thing. Yeah. But that was when things were in balance. So gift giving and gift receiving is something that we can, it's an indication of worthiness. Yeah. At a bottom line. Yeah. And things that we can do and in relationships. When I was in college, there was this one guy that I was dating, and he was wonderful. He was so good to me. He was so good to me. At that point in time, I didn't feel worth that. And I kept trying to prove to him that I was not as good as he thought I was. And it wasn't like he was putting me up on some pedestal, like, oh, you're so perfect or anything. It wasn't that at all. He saw me and he elevated me, and I didn't feel worthy of that. And I kept trying to prove to him that I was not as good as he thought I was, and he needed to stop thinking that way. And
how many times have we done that?
Oh gosh.
Like, pushing guys away that were good, and like gravitating towards guys that are not that good because am I worthy of the kind of love where they truly appreciate who I am, or they see the best in me and they want the best for me? That's for some women and men too. Men act like wackadoos sometimes because they don't feel worthy either, and so lash out in different ways. And it's just that the whole dating world is all fraught with how worthy we think we are and how much we are willing to accept and what we aren't. And and
I ended up breaking up with him, and it had nothing to do with him. It was everything to do. It's not you, it's me. Really, it was me. It was me. I'm the problem. It's me. So that's, and so in our relationships, we can, when we're feeling taken advantage of or whatever, oftentimes it's because we don't feel worth standing up for ourselves. We accept. Where did I hear this? What we accept, we promote. I can't remember who I just heard that from. Oh, I know. One of these days I'm going to start another little 5-minute podcast called Life Lessons, because that's one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what's a life lesson you've learned so far? It was one of the life lessons that what you accept, you promote.
Oh wow.
It was one of the ones that I was just reading through some of those. And we accept things because we think that's where we are, that's what we deserve.
I was thinking about, I just said it all about the dating world, but actually marriages too.
Oh yeah.
And they're like this.
And friendships as well.
Yes. Yeah. Am I worthy of the kind of friends that, am I worthy of a friendship? Absolutely not.
Absolutely, yes.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
But the kind of, yeah. And I think people go through valleys and peaks. This is my outside view of people's marriages. But like, yeah. And really for women, a lot of it is tied up in how their body looks. I don't think for married men that's as big a deal for them. But the worthiness and how do I look in whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
But yeah, so those in relationships, it shows up a lot. Another place that it shows up is in our career. We hear a phrase that we hear a lot these days is imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And if that's not a worthiness thing, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yes. So because you get the job and you think,
ooh, wow, they're going to find out I don't really deserve this
exactly.
job.
They're going to find out I really don't ride a horse. Or I'm thinking of actors. Actors always say they can ride horses when they can't. That's what I've heard. So-called. That's on their resumes. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. Same thing. You're like in your job, they're like, oh, when are they going to find out I don't ride a horse?
Yeah. Or fear, and not just this isn't just in careers, but like if we're afraid of some new task that we're given, or we're afraid to apply for that promotion, or we're when fear shows up at work, often it's a worthiness thing.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And
money.
Money too.
So much money.
Oh my gosh. Women and jobs and money. I am so grateful that they are starting to be, I don't think there's any laws yet, but there are companies who will publish everybody's salary. Oh. I worked at a place once where we were paying our interns. We were working outside of San Francisco, and we were paying our interns less than what you could get in San Francisco. And at a company that could very, very much afford it. And there was a girl who was there who was kind of younger. I loved her. She was adorable. And I kind of took her under my wing, and then I found out how much she made, which you're not supposed to talk about, which is a very, very good way to make sure that people don't feel worthy or don't know how much they're worth. Based on their salary. And she told me, and I was like, nope, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. That is not an acceptable rate of pay. You cannot live on that. Like, and I told her how much I made, and I felt a little bit like guilty doing it. And then I felt like, oh, am I going to get in trouble? And I thought, no, like the people, men are getting paid. Still, men are getting paid. I think still $1.78 or something like that. Like still, and like trying to prove your worthiness when the world is saying you guys aren't worthy of this. That also is like a difficult thing. And I'm grateful that there are companies who are starting to publish everybody's salary, because otherwise we would never know. Yeah. And I remember a friend years ago. Clearly,
this friend had met somebody who had this just completely different worldview of money view, worldview of money view. And my husband was raised in a family where it's like for the first probably 10 years of my marriage, somebody would hear my last name and go, oh, I know one of those. They're hard workers. That was always the second sentence, always. And it is generationally trained to be hard workers, and that is a very valuable thing, but it can go too far. When you're trained and have the mindset of you have to do $5 worth of work for every dollar that you get, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That becomes a problem. But so that was kind of how, that was the money view that my husband was raised with, in essence. And then this friend of mine, their friend was like, there is so much money flying around the world, you have to try for it not to land on you. And it was like,
wow. Yeah.
What? And I wasn't as extreme as my upbringing it was more not you have to do $5 worth of work for every dollar that you earn, but it definitely was. It was like you have to work for your money.
Yeah,
you have to work for it.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying that
no,
you
no.
don't work for your money.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is when you work, now this is from a long time ago, but my mom was a single mom because not of her own doing. And she worked at a bank for several years, worked at Bank of California in downtown San Francisco in the 50s and 60s, like a madman secretary, but she wasn't a secretary. And they hired a man to, because, you know, whatever, the position expanded, whatever. And so they hired a man to help her. He was making double what she was. Literally, they looked at her salary, went, okay, here's double. And he was married, no children. And she found out, and my mom marched up. She might not think she deserves like nice Joe Malone body wash, but she knew that she was worth more than him. So she marched up, and they said, he's got a family. And she's like, I do too. And they're like, nah, your family is not worth the same as his family. And so there was nothing for her to do because obviously it was the 60s. And so she went back down and did her job. But like, so yeah. I mean, we could probably go on and on. I have endless amounts of stories. Endless.
So, obviously you need to work for your money, but the idea that money comes easily.
Yes.
And it's like there's so much money flying around out there that you have to try for not to land on you.
But I was surprised. I worked as an executive assistant to a founder of a very, very large company, to an executive who now is like over all of Etsy. He's the CEO of Etsy, and I was his executive assistant, whatever. He was the person that I learned from. Like, people would contact him all the time and were like, hey, we went to Brown together, or hey, I don't know if you remember me, because I like had to do his emails and stuff. But I need a job here, and I need this. I need a recommendation, whatever. And sometimes he would not even hardly know who they were. And he would be like, fine. And just, I mean, it was so like, it was such a different experience to see how people who are wealthy and come from very wealthy families think that they're entitled to things that, like, I would have never contacted somebody and went, hey, can you, no matter who, I mean, maybe somebody I'd worked before, but it was a big eye-opening experience to see what they thought they deserved. And what he wasn't like, oh, this person is super rich and that's why I'm doing this. They asked him, and I was, like, if anyone had asked him, I later on needed his endorsement for something, and I wrote him, and he immediately gave that to me. But I mean, I worked for him, so but
no, my husband, but something had come up with one of my sons recently, and something that he had was looking at getting, or I don't remember what it was, but my husband went, charmed life, and I went, charmed life? This is a kid who he asks. Like, one of his things he lives by is, don't tell yourself no. Let them tell you no.
Yes.
And so
that's good.
And a lot of things, when he was 16, I think he was 16, maybe he's a little older than that. No, he was probably 17. Anyway, bought his first car. The way he bought his car was, he saw this car sitting in a driveway in the neighborhood. He's like, that's the car I want. He went up to their door at 17, maybe 18 years old, went up to their door, knocked on the door and said, do you want to sell your car? And they went, maybe. He ended up buying, so he had this cool little sports car, very first car.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't for sale. He just went knocked on the door and asked. Yeah. And they said, sure.
That's,
And so it's like, when you
feel like you're worthy enough, when you know that you're worthy enough to ask for the salary, to ask for that, we think we might not get it, or the time off, or, lessening of a job because you're doing three people's jobs. You're worthy. You're worthy.
Another area that we see it is in health and well-being. When we neglect ourselves physically, when we neglect our mental health, there's so much, and we've talked about what we base so much of our self-worth in our body image and all of that. That's very this worthiness really touches that on a lot of levels.
I'm going to suggest something in front of everybody.
Okay.
This is such a huge topic.
Mhm.
And I feel like I told a lot of stories, and I think it's important for us to
Mhm.
relate our personal experiences.
Mhm.
But like, there's a few more things that are like essential. Should we like do a two-parter?
Maybe so.
Because I don't know where we are in time, but I can venture a guess it's going to be longer than
let's
30 minutes.
And
we love you guys.
We do. And we don't want to
respect your time. We respect your time. You are worth a lot.
But we're not going to ask you to give us 2 hours in one shot.
No.
So let's do this. Let's talk about some of the ways that we've talked about, a lot of the ways that it shows up and all the areas it touches. And we'll tie that up here in just a second. And then we'll do the second part on tools.
Yes.
What to do.
She is the queen of like, how do we make this work for real life? Like, what do we need to do in real life? Like, that's me. And she's like, bottom line.
The bottom line, that has much more come from my very practical, hardworking husband.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
I've very much learned that tie-in from him.
I mean, you're up here too.
Yes.
So anyway, we're like worthing each other out here.
Well, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, so I was, I got to be the one who just, everything you think in theory can come true. And,
yes.
So my husband's practicality has been very good for me.
I do not have a practical husband. And I too was the youngest of 5 kids. So I just live in the clouds.
So now you've got
always. Me. Yes. Now I have Tracy. And you have her too.
So
lucky you.
When you want to say anything about this health and well-being and how worthiness shows up here?
I mean,
this is a whole own episode, but we're not going there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of neglect that happens because we put everybody in front of us. I mean, I don't, because I don't have a husband and I don't have kids, so it's not like me, but I know women who like do all kinds of things for her kids. What? I don't have a husband and kids.
You don't have a husband and kids, but you have recently.
See, this is the reason we're going to do 2 parts.
Recently, I know 100% fact of you having served somebody in a way that was really hard for you to serve them. You put them and their needs ahead of you and your needs. So yes, you do this too, just not to a husband and children.
Okay.
With other people.
We all do. And
that's not, it's not always a bad thing to put other people ahead of yourself. Don't misunderstand that. No. But when we are doing that from a place of they deserve it more than we do, and it becomes this, just the way that we live all the time, and we're giving from a place of lack rather than a place of power and strength. Yeah. Those are 2 different things. And then as I was studying up for this, one of the areas that came up was that worthiness shows up is in creativity and personal growth. And I thought, it's really interesting that would come up. Yes, I 100% agree with this, but I just wouldn't have thought of it with all these other things. And one of the signs that it brought up, and I went, I hadn't thought about this way, but it makes sense, is procrastination.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge procrastinator. I had ideas of all kinds of things that I have not started because I think, that's not going to be perfect. Or what I've said a lot to people about my writing is my creative writing, not my like work writing, is that I'm not afraid for it to get rejection. I'm afraid to get published. I'm afraid to get, And so I sent something out for the first time, like a creative thing, and creative short story actually. And I sent it to like the most prestigious place I possibly could. And so everyone was excited for me because they knew it was like one of the first times, and they're like, hey, when did you hear? What is it? Well, and when I got a rejection, because it's like one of the most prestigious places to send your work. When I got a rejection, I was like, I had like this feeling of like relief. So that's not good.
No.
That's a self-worth thing, and like what I feel my writing is worth, or my creative output is worth, or what have you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big worthiness thing for me. Big.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap this up here and come back next time for tools, how to deal with this. So what do we do when we find ourselves
Procrastinating?
Yeah, looking staring straight into the mirror of worthiness and it not being what ideally can be.
Yeah.
So recommendation, if you have not read Jamie Kernling's book, Believe It, read that book, because it is, when she's talking about believe it, she's talking about you need to be the one who believes in you.
Yeah.
And it's just a great book. It's a great book. And there are lots of other books that are very much more, scientifically oriented. And if that's your thing, find those. But Jamie's book is really approachable, really readable, and just really brings up some great ideas to stew on. So recommend that. Really, you deserve to nourish your body and your soul.
Yes, absolutely.
You deserve that. You are worth that. And we'll talk more about this next time.
Yep. All right. See you guys later.
Bye. Hey, if you want to help us grow this podcast that we're having fun doing, like and subscribe.
And comment.
Oh, yes.
Please comment. We will comment back.
Yes, we will. Hey, it's Tracy. If this was helpful and you'd like more, follow me on Instagram at tlastel.nourishingbodyandsoul, or on Facebook or YouTube at Nourishing Body and Soul, or you can find my website at nourishingbodysoul.com. Thanks for tuning in to Nourishing Body and Soul, the podcast. Before we wrap up, we just want to remind you that the information we share in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended for medical advice. While we hope you find our discussions helpful, we strongly recommend that you seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, or any other aspect of your health. We also want to make it clear that the host, guests, and producers of this podcast are not responsible for any adverse effects or consequences that may result from the use of any information or suggestion discussed in this podcast. We care about your well-being, but we can't take responsibility for individual outcomes. By listening to this podcast, you agree to indemnify and hold harmless the host, guests, and producers of this podcast from and against any and all claims, damages, liabilities, costs, and expenses arising from your use of the information provided in this podcast. We're so grateful for your support, and we hope you keep listening and learning with us. Thanks.